has gone through in recent memory, certainly in the state of Florida, now's the time to stop and say, what do we want to be? Not just as an HBCU, but as a member of the state university system. What do we want our student population to look like? In size, in quality? What do we want our academic programs to focus on, to center on? What research do we want to engage in at a national and international level? Folks, we research everything in the state university system. That's part of a professor's workload: service, teaching, research. But we do know this: you can't be internationally known in everything. Sooner or later, a university has got to make some strategic decisions. That's tough, because it's like being around my dinner table as a kid. There were 6 of us, and I always noticed how much food was put on the plates of the other 5. The minute I started to think I was getting short shrift, I mentioned something. Look, everybody wants to be the greatest and the best. But we all know this: if everything is your priority, you have no priorities. We cannot be everything to everybody. That means we've got to begin to make the tough decisions. Because at the end of the day, the tough decisions manifest themselves in the classroom and in the laboratory. And more importantly, they manifest themselves in the success rates of our students, or the lack of success of our students. Taking in students is as easy as putting up a sign, taking you in today. Graduating them is an entirely different deal. And that's why I'm happy that every university is now focusing in on graduation and retention rates. You know how much money we'd save if we kept more of our students instead of losing them? It's into the billions, and you only have to increase your retention rate by 20%. You're saving billions, not only on the student who walked out the door, but on the new student who's going to come in and take their place that you have to start all over with. At the end of the day, these sound like numerators and denominators. I don't want this to sound like an equation or an algorithm, but at the end of the day, these are strategic decisions that have got to be made. And if you decide you want to take in a number of new students, before you just put out the sign, you have to decide what you want those students to be able to do when they get there, because you've got to have yourself organized to take them where you find them. Now, at the University of Florida, where the admissions standard for incoming freshmen sits at about a 1450 SAT and about a 4.5 weighted GPA, you got a little more room to move. But when you get to FAU, FIU, FAMU, you have to be careful that there is a balance between the number you bring in and your capacity to assist them, because they're not all going to be 4.5 weighted GPAs and 1450 SATs. And if you don't have the support structure in place, you are going to doom students to be a part of that retention rate failure. That's just the rub. That is the nature of the beast. And so it is important to grow, but it's important to grow the right way. And so back to where I started, again, I'm talking about FAMU. I can talk about a number of universities in the system. These are critical decisions, and we ought to be making them now, not in the spring. I look at differential tuition. FAMU is no different than FAU. 15% a year is only going to carry you so far before the students are unhappy. Lest I remind everybody that it was out in California where students were rioting on the expressway outside of Berkeley because of a 32% tuition increase. Do you know there are students who started in this university system as freshmen who have now seen their tuition increase by 60% as a senior? Not at FAMU, not at FAU. We just got the privilege. But at universities that started the differential tuition 2 years earlier, they've raised it 15% every year. If Uncle Sam raised your taxes by 60% over 4 years, how'd that work out for you? You might just voice some opposition to that. We've raised student tuition by 60% over the last 4 years on thousands of Florida school students. Now, they haven't rioted in the street, but I got to tell you, you know what I know. FAMU, I was just talking to President Ammons about this this afternoon. about 80% of your students are on needs-based financial assistance, and 70% of them are on Pell Grants. Now, I know Pell Grants have gone up. I know that we're going to get more and more needs-based. But you also know what I know. President Ammons knows it. You can't keep going back to the 15% well every year. So at some point, there's going to be not only less state money than we're used to, tuition is going to be coming down. It has to. The market is going to catch up with us. That goes back to where I started. That means the strategic decisions about how many you are going to have and what they're going to look like when they get there need to be made today. Not once they're in the seats, too late. Then you're just trying to throw whatever you got at them to help them get through. And we look at the retention rates and the graduation rates, and how many of our kids are struggling just to get by, and how many of them finally say, either for economic reasons or for academic reasons or family reasons, I can't do this anymore. And they're gone. Many never to come back. I'm not talking about stop-outs. I'm talking about dropouts who are done, never to come back. Now, this is not an indictment of FAMU. Again, I'm talking about FAMU because I'm here. I can talk about universities all over the state. That's why these work plans, that's why these strategic plans are so important. So we can begin to vision what Florida A&M is going to look like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, not year to year. That's crisis management. And I'm not suggesting that's what you're doing. I'm simply pointing out as a system, that's how we need to begin to organize ourselves. Because if we don't, if we try to do this and cobble it together year in and year out, the retention rates aren't going to go up, the graduation rates aren't going to go up, the amount of research we're doing will not significantly increase because we're going to be robbing research Peter to pay teaching Paul, and vice versa.